interesting and a very new topic, which is now known as neutrosophic logic. So far, you have heard of fuzzy logic, and there are various variations of fuzzy logic, like type 2 fuzzy logic, intuitionistic fuzzy logic. I will slowly take you through the logic theory in this presentation and end up with the latest which is there in the market and the people who have been working in this area. I will change my slide now and you will please inform me whether my slide has got changed or not. Yeah, please tell me.
All right, sir.
Yes, sir.
So now
Sure.
it is historical note.
It
Yes,
is
sir.
showing.
It is historical note.
Very nice. So this now with the help of my son, I have got the system corrected. Mohammed, would you please close the door, this one? Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, you now see the history of fuzzy logic. In fact, goes back to the days of Aristotle and the binary logic representing true and false, which began the development of logic in the history of humankind. So, the logic is not very new. It started the time of Aristotle and Socrates, and they had in the very beginning started talking of the logic and connectivity of the logics. I will show you some of the examples. So the multi-logic also evolved about the same time, not to a very good extent. Multiple valued logic. Binary logic is just one or zero, true or false, hot and cold. But then if there are shades in between zero and one, it goes to multiple valued logic. For why could the binary logic gain importance was because of the transistors which were invented by Shockley and Bardeen, uh, which had the operations into the active region and cutoff region. So the flow of current and no flow of current, and that is how they could represent the logics 0 and 1. But if we could have transistors in which there will be multiple levels of active mode and the cutoff mode, we could get the multi-logic uh, digital system as well. The field attracted the attention of numerous researchers worldwide and initiated a great deal of work in this field. Then fuzzy logic joined the application domain, where it has been used in numerous systems and consumer applications, which I talked to you in the last lecture, including the washing machine, camcorders, and microwave ovens, to name just a few. Now, here is the classical logic. The classical logic, which was invented by the Greek classical scholars and then later used by mathematicians. Every statement is either true or false. In that classical logic, every statement is either true or false. And statements can be combined with the logical connections and or. And a statement can be modified with not. Truth tables are used to evaluate the truth value, that is the trueness or falseness of a complicated statement. The logical if-then statements are very important, used to express the theorems. We will see how could we do that. In a Boolean logic, which is based on the classical logic, where each element contains only two possible values. So any element is either the part of a set or not the part of a set. So that is how we say that it belongs to the set or it doesn't belong to the set. If it belongs, we say yes. It doesn't, we say no. Give a value of 1 if it belongs, and give a value of 0 if it doesn't. And then the formulas that were evaluated for the truth values. In 1854, logical algebra was published by George Boole, and that is why it is known as Boolean algebra. It is known today as Boolean algebra. It's a convenient way and systematic way of expressing and analyzing the operation of logic circuits. In 1938, the Claude Shannon was to first apply the Boole's work to the analysis and design of logic circuits. But it is not always applicable. You see, in the graph, if we say that how tall a man is, and if we put a boundary line that if the man is 1.8 meter tall, he is a tall man. And if it is less than 1.8 meter, is not tall. So that is how the Boolean logic will represent. So at 1.8 meter, the value is 1. And less than 1.8 is not 1, it's 0. So the red line is on the x-axis here for any value less than 1.8 meter. So this is the tall. The red curve represents the tall, means at 1.8 meter the person is tall, and for any value less than 1.8 meter is not tall, and tall is for anything 1.8 greater than 1.8 it still remains a tall, and the complement of this is not tall. So the blue curve represents not tall. So 1.8 मीटर से कम है तो वो tall नहीं है, tall नहीं है उसकी वैल्यू 1 है. So there are two different phrases. हम एक जगह tall कह रहे हैं, उसका कर्व रिप्रेजेंट किया है लाल से, और दूसरी जगह not tall कह रहे हैं, उसको रिप्रेजेंट किया है ब्लू से. So not tall has a value 1 for any length or any height less than 1.8 meter, और 1.8 मीटर से अगर ऊपर है तो वो not tall की वैल्यू जो है वो 0 हो जाती है. So we are all familiar with this binary value logic and set theory. An element belongs to a set of all possible elements, and given any specific subset, it can be said accurately whether that element is or is not a member of it. For example, if a person belongs to the set of all human beings and given a specific subset such as all males, one can say whether or not each particular person or the element belongs to this set or not. This is appealing, since it seems to describe the way human reason, the people think. Collecting many elements into sets allows to describe many occurrences with few rules in this system. For example, if I say that if a person is male and a parent, तो इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? Please think about this sentence. If I say that a person is male and the person is a parent, so who is the person as a relationship?
Okay.
Father. So it means, and the connectivity is important. इसमें हमने and का इस्तेमाल किया है कि एक आदमी मेल है और ए पर्सन मेल है और पेरेंट भी है, इसका मतलब कि वो फादर है. सो द रूल इज इफ ए पर्सन इज मेल एंड ए पेरेंट then the person is a father, or if the person is a female and a parent then the person is a mother. Likewise, the connectivity and or can be created to describe various elements, and this applies to many people across the world with complete precision. The rules are formed using operators, जिसमें हम the intersection operator कहते हैं and को, और को कहते हैं exclusive operator, which manipulates the sets. Unfortunately, in fact, not everything can be described using binary valued sets in our practical life. The classifications of persons into males and females is easy, क्योंकि हम third gender को consider नहीं कर रहे हैं. But it is problematic to classify them as being tall or not tall. अब आपको इंसानों की दो कैटेगरी बनानी हो, tall और not tall. Do you think it is really easy? No. The set of all tall people is far more difficult to define because there is no distinct cutoff point at which tall begins. हमने अपने एग्जाम्पल में 1.8 मीटर दिखा दिया है, लेकिन हर आदमी इससे एग्री नहीं करेगा. वो बोलेगा नहीं भाई 1.5 मीटर भी टॉल माना जाएगा. तो इनफैक्ट दिस इज नॉट ए मेजरमेंट प्रॉब्लम, एंड मेजरिंग द हाइट ऑफ ऑल एलिमेंट्स मोर प्रिसाइजली इज नॉट हेल्पफुल. हमें आदमियों की हाइट सबकी पता हो, फिर भी हम डिस्क्राइब नहीं कर सकते कि टॉल लोग कितने हैं और नॉट टॉल लोग कितने हैं. So such a problem is often distorted so that it can be described using the well-known existing methodology. Here one could simply select a height, जैसे हमने 1.8 मीटर select किया, at which the set tall begins. The output of a reasoning system using this definition would not be smooth with respect to the height of a person. A person of height 1.79 meter would produce a different output than a person of 1.81 meter. तो 1.81 मीटर और 1.79 मीटर कितना कम का डिफरेंस है, लेकिन एक में वो टॉल माना जाएगा, दूसरे में नॉट टॉल माना जाएगा. So in a human reasoning, this property is not observed, and it is also undesirable for reasoning systems that are part of a control system. Okay. And now I go to the next slide. So problem with the crisp logic is that whatever we have discussed about the height, this means that either the action will take place or it will not take place. If the condition were the set of conditions joined by the logical operators, then the same concept holds true. Once again, the various conditions are evaluated using the state of the system and are worked using the logical operators. The logical operators may and or not ये आते हैं. In the real world, however, this might not give a very realistic picture of the entire system. अब उनको ओवरकम करने के लिए जो बाइनरी लॉजिक है, जिसको हम बूलियन लॉजिक कहते हैं, जिसको हम डिस्क्रीट मैथमेटिक्स कहते हैं, उसको उस सिचुएशन को ओवरकम करने के लिए धीरे धीरे लोगों ने अलग अलग लॉजिक्स डिफाइन करना शुरू किया. तो आप ये देखिए, इसमें हमने 5 लॉजिक्स के नाम लिखे हैं. उसमें एक है लुकासिविज लॉजिक, दूसरा है फजी लॉजिक जिसके बारे में हम लोगों ने पिछले लेक्चर में काफी बात किया था. तीसरा है रफसेट थ्योरी जिसके ऊपर काम किया हमने भी, और हमारे एक उस्ताद थे आईआईटी दिल्ली में प्रोफेसर विश्वास, के विश्वास, तो उन्होंने भी रफ सेट के ऊपर काम किया. वी हैव सम गुड पब्लिकेशंस इनटू दिस. फिर वेग सेट के ऊपर भी हम लोगों ने काम किया. एंड देन केम द इंट्यूशनिस्टिक फजी सेट्स जिसके ऊपर अभी भी प्रोफेसर अतनासॉ हैज बीन वर्किंग इन बुल्गारिया. एनी क्वेश्चन प्लीज? आप लोग माइक्रोफोन ऑफ कर लीजिए अपना प्लीज. Okay. Now, this section will give a short review of the commonly used logics that are used to address the fuzziness or imprecision and uncertainty in the data acquired. अब एक एक करके हम इसको देखेंगे. In the Lukasiewicz logic, जो Lukasiewicz थे, उन्होंने कहा कि we can allow a proposition to have the value 1, 0 and half. जैसे हम सिर्फ 1 और 0 डिफाइन करते हैं बूलियन लॉजिक में, हम यहाँ पर एक तीसरा वैल्यू डिफाइन करेंगे 0.5 का. सो ही वुड ट्राई टू डिस्क्राइब द सिचुएशन विथ 3 पॉइंट्स विच विल बी पार्ट ऑफ द मेनी वैल्यूड लॉजिक. तो इसको हम ट्रिपल वैल्यूड लॉजिक कहेंगे. उसको बाइनरी लॉजिक कहते हैं, इसको हम कहते हैं ट्रिपल वैल्यूड लॉजिक. So for convenience in comparison with standard truth value semantics, these will be interpreted in what follows as true, false and undetermined. तो 3 स्टेट में एक तो ट्रू हो गया, एक फॉल्स हो गया, और एक ऐसी भी सिचुएशन आ सकती है जहां पर डिटर्मिनेशन डिफिकल्ट हो whether a particular given point belongs to a set or doesn't belong to a set. बिलोंग करता है तो ट्रू, नहीं बिलोंग करता है तो एफ, और अगर एम्बिग्यूटी है अनडिटर्मिन्ड है तो उसको हम 0.5 दे देंगे. So many valued logics as a separate subject was created by the Polish logician and philosopher whose name was Lukasiewicz. This was proposed in 1920 and he developed first in Poland. And his first intention was to use a third and additional truth value for possible and to model this way the modalities. It is necessary that and it is possible that. तो हम जब जब वन कहना हो तो कहेंगे कि इट इज नेसेसरी, और जीरो कहना हो तो कहेंगे इट इज नॉट एट ऑल रिक्वायर्ड, और ये कहना है कि इट इज पॉसिबली रिक्वायर्ड तो हम वहां पर 0.5 का या 1.2 का वैल्यू दे देंगे. This intended application to model logic did not materialize at a later stage. And the outcome of these investigations are, however, the Lukasiewicz systems. And the series of theoretical results concerning these systems are existing and available. In mathematics per se, the Lukasiewicz logic is a non-classical, multi-valued logic. It was originally defined by as a three-valued logic. And the truth values are not only true or false, but there exists a third intermediate value, as I told. And a formula is allowed to be neither true nor false. We can interpret the intermediate truth value as possibility. तो 0.5 को हम possibility कहेंगे, 1 को definitely yes कहेंगे, 0 को definitely no कहेंगे, और 0.5 value को possibility कहेंगे. And the truth value is not decided yet, but possibly decided at some later time. We use truth falsehood and call the third truth value undecided and use the symbol U to denote it. Essentially, parallel to the Lukasiewicz approach, the American mathematician Post, यहाँ नाम देख रहे हैं, Post, he also proposed something, and he said कि हम इंटरमीडिएट में सिर्फ एक वैल्यू क्यों दें? अगर हम 0 और 1 के बीच में एक वैल्यू दे रहे हैं, so we can give multiple values between 0 and 1. तो वो उसको उन्होंने कहा कि we can have the m values. We can see the small m here. So he said that we can give m values between 0 and 1. So this happened in 1921. Lukasiewicz ने तो 1920 में propose किया, but Post proposed in sorry. So he proposed in 1921 and introduced the basic idea of additional truth degrees, which can be as many as m, and applied it to the problems of the representability of functions. And next came the fuzzy logic, which you have already seen in detail. And what fuzzy says, कि जो tall का definition है, जो हमने बाइनरी में किया था डिफाइन, 1.8 मीटर से ऊपर वाले तो टॉल होंगे और 1.8 मीटर से नीचे वाले जो है नॉट टॉल होंगे. अब हम इसको बजाय इसके कि स्ट्रेट लाइन से डिफाइन करें, वी हैव नाउ डिफाइंड विद स्लैंटिंग लाइन. तो 1.8 मीटर से कम भी और 1.8 मीटर से ज्यादा भी वो हम ये जो है स्लोप लाइन से डिफाइन करेंगे. So this can represent tall, or blue line not tall को represent, because the not tall is exactly the complement of tall. इसलिए हम इसको इस तरह से दिखाना है. So truth values are continuous between 0 and 1. ये जैसे हम देख रहे हैं यहाँ 0 पे, यहाँ से लेके 0 से 1 तक ये रेड लाइन ऊपर जा रही है continuously. And the compute truth values of complicated statements using chosen formulas, as there are other reasonable formulas and or not, which are connectors. Now, what kind of vagueness does फजी लॉजिक हेल्प विथ, तो हम इसको अब आगे एक्सप्लोर ज्यादा नहीं करेंगे, बट ऑफ कोर्स वी विल सी हाउ डू। तो यहाँ जो ऊपर में लिखा हुआ है, फॉर द सेट, a fuzzy set A is a selection of points in that set for all the elements X which have the membership value of mu. And X belongs to a universe of discourse called U. Universe of discourse means the context in which you are talking. Are you talking of a temperature which is related to your room temperature? तो आपका जो यूनिवर्स ऑफ डिस्कोर्स है वो 10 डिग्री से लेकर के 40 डिग्री तक का टेम्परेचर हो जाएगा. बट इफ यू आर टॉकिंग ऑफ अ टेम्परेचर इन इंडस्ट्री, इन फर्नेस, you can talk of temperatures from 100 degrees Celsius to 1000 degrees Celsius. So universe of discourse changes with context of description. उसी के अकॉर्डिंगली जो है वो एलिमेंट्स और उसका जो है वो बिलोंगिंगनेस या उसकी जो वैल्यू है वो डिपेंड करती है. तो फजी लॉजिक, एवरी इनपुट बिलोंग्स टू एवरी क्लास. The degree of association of the input to the various classes varies. The fuzzy logic, in fact, Lutfi Zadeh, I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, he had revolutionized the field of logics by proposing a novel multiple valued logic, which was known as fuzzy logic in 1965, where each element in fuzzy set had a degree of membership. It also has the provision of allowing linguistic variables, which truth values may vary between 0 and 1, as it was shown to you. In contrast to the two values of classical logic, which was Boolean logic, the characteristic function of a crisp set assigns a value of either 1 or 0, as we have seen in the case of the tall, to each individual in the universal set, thereby discriminating between members and non-members of the crisp set under consideration. Now, fuzzy logic generalizes this function by suggesting that the values assigned to the elements of the universal set falls within a specified range and indicate the membership grade of these elements in the set in the question. And that set is defined by the universe of discourse, capital U. The smaller values denote lesser degrees of membership and vice versa. Such a function is called the membership function, and the set defined by it is a fuzzy set. The commonly used interval used by the membership function is 0 and 1. Each membership function maps elements of a given universal set, which is capital U, or it is represented with capital X, which is always a crisp set into real numbers. Now came the rough set theory. So far, we have only considered the sets in which some fuzziness of an element belongs to the set. The rough set have evolved as tools to better analyze the experimental data. इसमें क्या होता है, जैसे क्लाउड है, आप आसमान में क्लाउड देखते हैं, तो कुछ तो बड़े चंक्स होते हैं क्लाउड के और कुछ छोटे छोटे होते हैं. Now, if you want to make two different sets of clouds, और एक छोटा क्लाउड, आप इसको कहना चाहें कि ये छोटा क्लाउड इस वाले बड़े से बिलोंग करता है या इस वाले से बिलोंग करता है. If you want to make two bigger groups, then in order to define the belongingness of a smaller set to a particular bigger one, there may be certain boundary conditions that you may have to allow. So, but there is no discrete line that you can draw and definitely say कि ये यहाँ का है और ये यहाँ का है. So what do? You define approximations. So in rough set theory, you define two approximations. One is known as lower approximation, and the other is known as upper approximation. And the boundary that consists of elements whose existence in a set is vague or not precisely known. If the boundary is of zero width or does not contain any element, the rough set is called a crisp set. तो अगर बाउंड्री ऐसी है कि बिल्कुल सारे एलिमेंट या तो बाउंड्री के इधर हैं या उधर हैं, तो ये बाइनरी सेट हो गया. लेकिन अगर एम्बिग्यूटी है तो हम दो अप्रोक्सीमेशंस डिफाइन करते हैं बाउंड्री में, लोअर और अपर. Then came the vague set by Gao and Borer. The vague set was, in fact, defined by Gao and Borer in 1993, very late. So, in the year 2001, we published a paper using the vague set, which was very widely, appreciated. So, in what happens here is, they are basically characterized by a truth and false membership functions. दोनों के लिए अलग अलग membership function define करते हैं. फजी लॉजिक में क्या होता है कि अगर ट्रूथ वैल्यू फंक्शन डिफाइन कर दिया तो जो फॉल्स वैल्यू है ऑटोमेटिकली उसका कॉम्प्लीमेंट हो जाता है. बट हियर we define the truth value as well as the false value differently. So the alpha x may not be exactly, if alpha x is the truth value, then the false value may not be exactly 1 minus alpha x. So we define beta x as the false value. So they are characterized by truth and false membership functions separately and are set of objects where each of which has a grade of membership whose value is a continuous subinterval of 0 and 1. So a vague set A in the universe of discourse U is characterized by two membership functions given by truth membership function and false membership function. So there is a lower bound of the grade of membership of U and there is a evidence of U. So they have been represented like this. If it is a fuzzy set, then these two curves will be exactly complementary to each other. But vague set says that no, हम दोनों को अलग अलग डिफाइन करेंगे क्योंकि there may be certain elements which may not be part of the truth value or the false value. So this was one way of taking care of the ambiguity of a given situation. Vague sets. Okay. Now came the intuitionistic fuzzy sets. And our friend in Bulgaria, Professor Krasimir Atanasov, is a very friendly person and he encourages people to work into this. So he defined a new logic in 1983. You remember that we are discussing the journey of logic theory, starting from the classical logic, and now we are moving upwards. So we have come to the intuitionistic fuzzy logic, which was defined by Krasimir Atanasov in 1983. It is known as IFS, intuitionistic fuzzy set. And this theory basically disobeys the claim that if an element X belongs to a given degree, say it is mu, if it belongs to a given degree mu to a fuzzy set A, it naturally follows that X should not belong to A to the extent 1 minus mu. तो जो हमने अभी समझाने की कोशिश किया वेग सेट में कि अगर हम किसी एलिमेंट को कहें कि वो बिलोंग करता है इससे टू द एक्सटेंट ऑफ म्यू तो इट डजंट बिलोंग टू 1 माइनस म्यू. लेकिन यहाँ पर इंट्यूशनिस्टिक फजी सेट में ये नहीं है. ये कह रहे हैं कि इस नोशन को ये डिस्पेल करता है कि दैट द नॉन बिलोंगिंगनेस कैन नॉट नेसेसरली बी द कॉम्प्लीमेंट ऑफ द बिलोंगिंगनेस. सो an assertion implicit in the concept of fuzzy set necessarily, but here it is not. On the contrary, in the intuitionistic fuzzy sets, gives to each element of the universe both a degree of membership mu and a degree of non-membership nu. So mu or nu, ये दो अलग अलग define किए गए हैं. However, mu plus nu are not necessarily the sum of two equal to 1. It can be even less than 1. And if they become equal to 1, it means it is the Boolean logic or fuzzy logic, thus relaxing the enforced duality. इसमें ये है, ये ऐसा क्यों नहीं होता है कि ये कॉम्प्लीमेंट विच अदर? फॉर एग्जाम्पल, से दैट there is a very beautiful example given by Atanasau in his book. He says that suppose there is an election, so there are people who will vote for party X, and let us say those people are represented by mu X. Then there are people who vote for party B, which can be represented as mu X. So it is not necessary that the people who have voted for party A and the people who have voted for party B will sum to the entire population. No, because there may have been people who did not vote at all. They neither went for A nor went for B, and that is how the mu X and nu X may not necessarily be equal to 1. So there should be some provision to count for those people who did not vote. उनको हम कैसे अपने सेट के अंदर लेंगे, and how would the function be represented to take those points which neither belong to party A nor to party B. Okay, so this is intuitionistic fuzzy set. तो इसमें उन्होंने ये फॉर्मूले में ये लिखा कि the set A has got two types of membership values. One is the membership of belongingness and membership of non-belongingness. So an element X has a membership value of mu and non-membership value of nu, and both mu and nu belong to the universe of discourse U, and X belongs to the universe of discourse. And the values of mu and nu both are between 0 and 1, but the sum of the two may not necessarily be equal to 1. Okay, now comes the new logic which I have planned to discuss today, which is the Neutrosophic logic. And this is the last logic as on date. And this is known as the mother of all logics, because the Neutrosophic logic contains all given situations of ambiguity, including the paradoxes. क्योंकि लाइफ में बहुत सारी ऐसी चीजें हैं जो पैराडॉक्स हैं, जो ना इधर की हैं ना उधर की हैं, उनको हम कैसे मैथमेटिकली रिप्रेजेंट करेंगे, and the Neutrosophic logic provides a very nice solution to such problem. Now, very recently, in fact, the person who has been working for this is Florentine Samarandache in US. So it was proposed by Florentine, and it is based on non-standard analysis that was given by Abraham Robinson in 1960s. So Neutrosophic logic was developed to represent a mathematical model of uncertainty, vagueness, ambiguity, imprecision, incompleteness, inconsistency, redundancy, and contradiction. अभी तक हमने कॉन्ट्राडिक्शन की बात नहीं की थी. अभी तक हम इसकी बात करते रहे थे, अनसर्टेनिटी, वेगनेस, एम्बिग्यूटी, इम्प्रिसिजन, इनकम्प्लीटनेस, inconsistency, redundancy, but contradiction. So situations which are contradictory at the same time. And I will give you a few very nice examples. So all the factors stated are very integral to the human thinking. All these. As it is very rare that we tend to conclude in definite environments. Imprecision of the human systems could be due to the imperfection of knowledge that human receives from the external world. कोई भी बात जो हमें आधी मालूम है, तो हम उसके बारे में definite बात करते ही नहीं हैं. But when we model that fact, we need to understand how could we provide a mathematical representation to those half-truth, to those values, to those functions which are imperfect, which are imprecise, but yet they bear some value. उसके लिए Neutrosophic logic आई. Now, in this Neutrosophic logic, we will see the impetus. Where did it begin? What is the definition? How do we represent it mathematically? and then few general examples and application. What is the impetus? Why was it necessary to extend the fuzzy logic? Because a paradox as a proposition cannot be described by fuzzy logic. मैं अभी आपको बताता हूं कि what type of paradoxes could exist. So what I have written here is, आप पढ़िए कोई एक आदमी, ये बहुत अच्छी स्लाइड है, इसको पढ़ के आराम आराम से समझिए.
Fuzzy logic is not the final solution for representing human knowledge about the world. Rather, it is a foundation based on established notions that could easily be grasped by engineers and researchers. As a step towards formalizing human reasoning, fuzzy logic can't describe paradoxes. Fuzzy logic can't distinguish between relative and absolute truth and falsity. Recently proposed neurosophic logic can give
Neutrosophic logic. Neutrosophic.
neurosophic logic can give mathematical model of uncertainty, vagueness, ambiguity, imprecision, undefined, unknown, incompleteness, inconsistency, redundancy, and contradictions present in the data.
Very good. Now tell me, ये जो second bullet है, fuzzy logic cannot describe paradoxes, and also it cannot distinguish between relative and absolute truth. दुनिया में ट्रुथ बहुत कुछ है, लेकिन कुछ ट्रुथ ऐसे हैं जो बिल्कुल एब्सोल्यूट हैं और कुछ ट्रुथ ऐसे हैं जो रिलेटिव हैं. जैसे मैंने अभी कहा कि हमारे ये फ्रेंड ने ये बहुत अच्छा पढ़ा, ये ट्रुथ है, बहुत अच्छा पढ़ा, बट देन कितना अच्छा पढ़ा? कोई और पढ़ता, हो सकता है कि इनसे भी ज्यादा अच्छा पढ़ता, क्लियर पढ़ता. तो ट्रुथ तो दोनों होते, लेकिन उनकी कोई डिग्री होती, उसको कहते हैं रिलेटिव ट्रुथ वैल्यू. लेकिन एक ट्रुथ है, द सन राइजेज इन द ईस्ट, ये भी तो ट्रुथ है. द अलमाइटी गॉड इज वन, ईश्वर एक है. कहीं भी आप देख लीजिए, वो एक ट्रुथ है, उसमें कोई एम्बिग्यूटी नहीं है. उसको कहते हैं एब्सोल्यूट ट्रुथ. द सन राइजेज इन द ईस्ट is absolute truth. I am a good teacher is a truth which may not be absolute, because somebody can always say कि नहीं सर, आपसे ज्यादा अच्छा तो फलां साहब पढ़ाते हैं, ठीक है, लेकिन ट्रुथ तो है. So there is a concept of relative truth and absolute truth. ऐसी सिचुएशन में क्या होगा? अगर हम दोनों को वैल्यू 1 देंगे, तो बात तो वही जैसे हम डेमोक्रेसी में करते हैं कि हमारे वोट की वैल्यू और प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया की वोट की वैल्यू बिल्कुल सेम है. हमारी वोट भी एक काउंट होगा और मैडम मुर्मू जो वोट देंगी वो भी एक काउंट होगा. तो ये तो डेमोक्रेटिक सेटअप हो गया, लेकिन वैल्यू के लिहाज से हमारी नहीं होनी चाहिए उतनी. वो डेमोक्रेसी का पिटफॉल है, लेकिन हम मैथमेटिक्स की बात कर रहे हैं. वी आर टॉकिंग ऑफ साइंस, we are talking of models. So here we may have to be different while assigning the truthfulness to different situations. एक absolute truth को हम एक 1 दें और एक relative truth को भी 1 दें, ये justified नहीं है. तो neutrosophic logic takes care of such situations. Now I have a question for you. Can you describe a real life situation which becomes a paradox? कोई ऐसी चीज, कोई ऐसा एग्जाम्पल जो आप जानते हो, आप हमें बताइए, जिसको हम कह सकते हैं पैराडॉक्स. कहते हैं ना विडंबना. एनीबडी हु कैन टेल मी एनी एग्जाम्पल ऑफ पैराडॉक्स?
Yes, sir.
बताइए.
Sir, one of the major paradox in our economics that is used, savings is good for the human being, as we know very well that saving the money is
It's
very
good.
good for everyone. But what happens when everyone began to save?
Hmm.
Then when will spent on the consumptions, then the economy will collapse down.
Very
That is
good.
what the paradoxical problem in our economy. That
Very
is one
true.
of the
It's a very classic example. Saving money is a good habit, but then if everybody starts saving, there will be no flow of money in the market. There will be no economic that can sustain. There will be no, supply chain system. तो ये पैराडॉक्स है. तो पूरा मार्केट कोलैप्स कर जाएगा, पूरी इकोनॉमी कोलैप्स हो जाएगी, हर आदमी अपना अपना पैसा लिए बैठा रह जाएगा. तो ये बात सही है. ओके, वेरी गुड एग्जांपल. एनी अदर एग्जांपल, एनी अदर सब्जेक्ट? Anybody from physics in this? कोई फिजिक्स का है इसमें? Raise your hand. From physics background. So out of 133, there is nobody from physics. चलिए, you don't necessarily require to be a person of physics. In fact, मैं आपको बताऊं, at the 12th standard 11th class में ही हम लोगों ने श्रोडिंगर कैट थ्योरी पढ़ा होगा. पढ़ा है? श्रोडिंगर कैट थ्योरी. So in that, it is said that a quantum particle can be present at two different places at the same time. ये पैराडॉक्स है. एक ही पार्टिकल एक ही समय में दो अलग अलग जगहों पे कैसे रह सकता है? बट कैट थ्योरी सेज दैट, and the Schrodinger equation is a very popular equation in wave theory, and a whole lot of physics has been described onto that. I will come to that a little later. But however, we need to understand that because a paradox as a proposition cannot be described in fuzzy logic, because the neutrosophic logic helps make a distinction between a relative truth and absolute truth, while the fuzzy logic does not do that. Okay. So because due to the fact that paradox is a proposition which is very important into our life, true and false could exist at the same time. जैसे इन्होंने कहा कि saving is a very good habit, it is true, but then it becomes false at times. तो एक ही statement is true and false at the same time because of its implications. तो ऐसे में न्यूट्रोसोफिक लॉजिक सजेस्ट करता है कि हम कुछ ऐसे नॉन लीनियर वैल्यूज डिफाइन करें कि हमारा ट्रूथफुलनेस 1 भी हो और 1+ भी हो अगर ये एब्सोल्यूट ट्रूथ है. अगर फॉल्स है तो 0 से रिप्रेजेंट करें, लेकिन कभी कभी एब्सोल्यूट फॉल्सिटी भी होती है लाइफ में, तो उसको 0- से भी रिप्रेजेंट कर सकते हैं. And then there are ambiguous situations which are undeterministic, paradoxical, उसको हम indeterminate value से define कर सकते हैं. So let us now see the next slide where how the origin of the neutrosophic logic began. So in 1980s, the Florentine Samarandache, after he coined the word from the Latin neuter and the Sophia, Greek, तो ये न्यूटर एंड सोफियस मिल करके दिस मीन्स नॉलेज ऑफ न्यूट्रल थॉट. तो ये कह रहे हैं कि अब हम लोग इसको कहेंगे कि द लॉजिक विच इज न्यूट्रल, विच टेक्स केयर ऑफ एवरीथिंग, विच गिव्स वैल्यू टू एवरी एस्पेक्ट ऑफ लाइफ. एब्सोल्यूट ट्रुथ, रिलेटिव ट्रुथ, एब्सोल्यूट फॉल्सिटी, रिलेटिव फॉल्सिटी, एम्बिग्विटी एंड द पैराडॉक्सिटी. तो उसके लिए इन्होंने कहा कि हम एक ऐसा लॉजिक डिफाइन करेंगे विच शुड बी न्यूट्रल लॉजिक. And he promotes this neutrosophy very heavily. He organized the first international conference on neutrosophic logic, set probability and statistics in 2001. and he mobilized all his resources in order to call people to understand the concept of neutrosophic logic. Uh, तो यहाँ पर इन्होंने ये कहा कि हम ट्रुथ के लिए टी, आई इनडिटर्मिनेट के लिए आई और फॉल्स के लिए एफ करेंगे, और चूंकि हमारे पास ट्रूथफुलनेस दो तरह की हो सकती है, फॉल्सिटी भी दो तरह की हो सकती है, तो ये कोई जरूरी नहीं है कि टी, आई और एफ मिल करके 3 ही हो, 3 से भी ज्यादा हो सकता है. So a logic in which each proposition is estimated to have the percentage of truth in a subset, the percentage of indeterminacy in the subset, and the percentage of falsity in the subset, they are all denoted as T, I, and F. And the set is not necessarily are intervals of equal magnitude, but maybe any real subunitary subsets. They can be discrete or continuous, single element, finite, or continuous. आगे देखते हैं. डिफिनीशन में ये कह रहे हैं कि एक और बड़ा अच्छा एग्जाम्पल मैं देना चाह रहा था, चलिए. So definition of neutrosophic logic: a logic in which each proposition is estimated to have the percentage of truth in a subset, the percentage of indeterminacy in a subset, and the percentage of falsity in the subset. T, I, and F is called the neutrosophic logic. And T, I, and F are called the neutrosophic components that present the truth value, indeterminacy value, and falsity value, or the falsehood value. Okay. मैं एक एग्जांपल देना चाह रहा था, हाँ यहाँ पर है. Well, yes, now the example of paradoxes are here. ये श्रोडिंगर कैट थ्योरी की मैंने बात बताई आपको कि that says that the quantum state of a photon can basically be in more than one place in the same time. So this is a paradox. How can a single particle be present at two different places at the same time? It's a paradox. It's a practical scientific paradox. And it cannot be represented by fuzzy logic, but can be translated to the neutrosophic set. Means that an element which is a quantum state belongs and doesn't belong to a set in one place in the same time, or an element belongs to two different sets in the same time. अगला एग्जाम्पल बहुत क्लासिक है, ये आप देखिए. दिस इज द पिक्चर ऑफ एपिमेनाइडिस. एपिमेनाइडिस वाज ए ग्रीक फिलोसोफर. जैसे सोक्रेट थे, एरिस्टोटल थे, वैसे ही एपिमेनाइडिस वाज ए ग्रीक फिलोसोफर. He used to live on the Crete island, very close to Greece. He once said that all Cretans are liars. तो ये तो तमाशा हो गया, क्योंकि अच्छा फिलोसोफर थे, वैसे भी फिलोसोफर्स की कोई बात पब्लिक को पसंद नहीं आती थी आम हालात में. तो लोग जान पे आते थे. सोक्रेट्स को बहुत परेशान किया गया, एरिस्टोटल को बहुत परेशान किया गया. सो इट हैपेंड विथ एपिमेनाइडिस. पीपल केम आफ्टर हिज लाइफ. तो इसने लोगों को बताया कि आप बैठिए, हम आपको समझाते हैं कि हाउ इट इज. He said all Cretans are liars. Yes, it's true. I am also a Cretan. So whatever I say is a lie, and therefore you are not liars. You understand the paradox? Anybody from you?
Sir, could you please repeat?
Yes, I would. Epimenides said, he was a Crete philosopher. He said, declared that all Cretans are liars. तो लोग उसके पीछे, उनकी जिंदगी के पीछे पड़ गए. पूछा कि आप ये कैसे कह सकते हैं कि ऑल क्रीटन्स आर लायर्स. तो उन्होंने कहा, आई विल मेक यू अंडरस्टैंड, बिकॉज आई एम ऑल्सो ए क्रीट, आई एम ऑल्सो ए क्रीटन. सो वट एवर आई से इज ए लाई, एंड देयरफॉर द क्रीटन्स आर नॉट लायर्स. So the sentence that he said is true and false at the same time. Unless his sentences is true, he cannot be a liar. And unless he is a liar, his sentence cannot be untrue. So the sentence remains true and false at the same time. What is the sentence? The Cretans are liars. And because he himself was a Crete, he said that because I am Crete, whatever I say is a lie, and therefore you are not liars. तो ये बहुत ही प्रैक्टिकल पैराडॉक्स उसी जमाने में जो फिलोसोफर्स का जमाना था ये सामने आया. हाउ कैन वी रिप्रेजेंट सच एम्बिगुअस and paradoxical situations in mathematics is given by neutrosophic logic. तो यहाँ पर आप ये देखिए.
Sir, should I add one thing? That
Please.
William Wordsworth said that child is the father of man.
Very
So it
good.
is also a paradox.
Correct. Yes, it is very
It is
true.
easy, sir, means to understand.
Yes, very true. I think that's one of the simplest examples of a paradox. Child is the father of a man. Very true. Very true. So the life
Sir,
is
one of
full
the
of. हाँ बोलिए.
sir, one of the paradox that I have recalled to for the time being.
Hmm.
We know very well that the value of water and the value of diamond, that is the paradoxical value. We know that the necessity of the water is high, despite the fact that the value of the water is very low. And
Hmm.
now, on the other hand, the diamond is very low or low necessity, but its
Hmm.
value is very high.
Right.
And at the on the basis of the necessity, we can say that why the diamond's value is very high, despite the fact that it is not useful for the life.
Hmm.
It is not. It is also not the essential for the life. But water's value is very low, despite the fact it is very essential. Without the life is not possible. That
Hmm.
is what also we call the paradox of value.
वैल्यू, पैराडॉक्स ऑफ वैल्यू, राइट. ये तो देखिए, ये तो भाई ईश्वर की देन है कि जो चीज इंसान के लिए जितना जरूरी है उतना ही ज्यादा सस्ता और फ्री में रखा गया है. वरना तो इंसान की जिंदगी अजीरन हो जाती है इस धरती पर. ये तो हम लोगों को बहुत शुक्रगुजार होना चाहिए अपने मालिक का कि जो चीज हमारे लिए सबसे ज्यादा जरूरी है वो फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट हर जगह अवेलेबल है. इनफैक्ट हमने उसको कॉन्टेमिनेट जरूर कर दिया है, उसको हमने खराब करने के लिए कोई कसर नहीं छोड़ी. हवा है, पानी है, और खाने के लिए भी एबंडेंस है. ठीक है, उसकी अवेलेबिलिटी कम और ज्यादा हो सकती है, लेकिन वो हमारी जरूरत है, इसलिए वो हमें मालिक ने बहुत दिया है. लेकिन ये एक पैराडॉक्स है, ये आपने जो बताया, आई एग्री, इट्स अ पैराडॉक्स ऑफ वैल्यू. कि जो जितना ज्यादा वैल्यूएबल है वो उतना ही सस्ता है, और जो बिल्कुल हमारे लिए यूटिलिटी के हिसाब से बहुत कम है वो ज्यादा नहीं है. यस, आई एग्री. तो इसके मैथमेटिकल रिप्रेजेंटेशन के लिए ये एक फॉर्मूला जो न्यूट्रोसोफिक लॉजिक में चलाया गया कि एवरी लॉजिकल वेरिएबल एक्स is described by an ordered triplet जिसको कहते हैं T, I and F, where T is the degree of truth and F is the degree of false and I is the level of indeterminacy. And to maintain a consistency with the classical and fuzzy logics and with probability, there is the special case where T plus I plus F is equal to 1. अगर ये फजी लॉजिक हो जाए तो इनडिटर्मिनेसी खत्म हो जाती है, ट्रूथ वैल्यू और फॉल्स वैल्यू, और दोनों का सम 1 हो जाता है. बट टू रेफर टू द इंट्यूशनिस्टिक लॉजिक, which means incomplete information on a variable proposition or event, one has T plus I plus F less than 1. ये तीनों को जोड़ दिए जाए तो भी 1 के बराबर ना हो, वो इंट्यूशनिस्टिक फजी से रिप्रेजेंट होगा, क्योंकि जो लोग वोट देने गए थे वो तो काउंट ही नहीं हो रहे हैं. सो द T plus I plus F may not be necessarily equal to 1 or greater than 1, but it can even be less than 1. So that will terminate into intuitionistic fuzzy logic. फिर एनालॉजिकली अगर हम रेफर करें टू पैराकॉन्सिस्टेंट लॉजिक, which means contradictory sources of information about the same logical variable, the proposition or the event t plus I plus f may be even greater than 1. तो उसके लिए हमने जो यहाँ डिफाइन किया है, the values of t or I or f is between 0 minus and 1 plus with open-ended brackets. ये ब्रैकेट उल्टे नहीं लिखे गए हैं, बल्कि ये जानबूझ करके लिखे गए हैं. You can see the values of t or I or f is between, जैसे आमतौर पे 0 और 1 के बीच होता था, तो it could be 0 minus as well as 1 plus for absolute values. तो absolute truth के लिए 1 plus हो सकता है, नहीं truthfulness 1 से भी ज्यादा हो सकती है, और falsehood 0 से भी कम हो सकती है. इसलिए हमने ये flexibility दी है. It means if we sum the situations like t plus I plus f may not necessarily be equal to 1 or less than 1, but it can even be greater than 1. So वो जब ये पैराकंसिस्टेंट लॉजिक को यूज करते हैं, which means the contradictory sources of information about the same logical variable, the proposition can even be greater than 1. Thus, we can say that the advantage of using neutrosophic logic is that this logic distinguishes in philosophy between relative truth, that is a truth in one or a few words only noted by 1, and absolute truth denoted by 1 plus. Likewise, the neutrosophic logic distinguishes between relative falsehood noted by 0 and absolute falsehood noted by 0 minus in a non-standard analysis. मैं इसको एक और एग्जाम्पल से आपको बताना चाहूंगा कि a neutrosophic answer to the question, अगर कोई क्वेश्चन पूछे, is the Pope a Catholic? ये सवाल है, is the Pope a Catholic? So might be 80 to 90% true, might be 36 to 42% false, and 2 to 7% indeterminate. Note that these values need not sum to 100%. So Samarandache claims that it can serve as a generalization of many other logics. Many other logics में कौन-कौन से discuss किए गए? Fuzzy logic, intuitionistic logic, and Boolean logic, etc. So in neutrosophic set theory, the propositions of the form X is an element of S are answered in terms of neutrosophic truth values. Hence, each element has a membership degree, an indeterminacy degree, and a non-determinacy degree. तो अब इनको डिफाइन करने के लिए सुपर ऑफ टी एंड इन्फिनिटम ऑफ टी किया जाता है. Okay, let's move. We are taking too much time on this. ये पेपी मेरे आईडीज का एग्जाम्पल हो गया, और आप लोगों ने बड़े अच्छे एग्जाम्पल्स हमको बताए और अच्छा लगा इनको देख करके. Now, the proposition that tomorrow it will be raining, अब अगर है तो इस सेंटेंस को वेरीफाई करने के लिए आप अपनी लाइफ में क्या क्या कर सकते हैं. Tomorrow it will be raining. It does not mean a fixed value component structure. This proposition may be 40% true, 50% indeterminate, and 45% false. अलग अलग लोगों से पूछेंगे, अलग अलग लोग बात करेंगे, और आप कैसे डिटरमिन करते हैं कि whether I should carry an umbrella tomorrow or not. एक तो जो आपका मेट्रोलॉजिकल डिपार्टमेंट है जो प्रेडिक्शंस करता है, दूसरे ये कि you will go by the past history of the date, कि भाई 22 तारीख को what was the situation for last 10 years, did it rain on this day or not. जब एयरपोर्ट पे जब रनवे डिजाइन किया जाता है तो एयर फ्लो, जो एयर का स्पीड and the direction of the wind is calculated and it is observed, and the data of 100 years is considered. क्योंकि जब एरोप्लेन को फ्लाइट लेना होता है तो जो हवा का डायरेक्शन है उसके अपोजिट डायरेक्शन में एरोप्लेन को दौड़ाया जाता है विद वेरी हाई स्पीड. सो द क्यूमुलेटिव इफेक्ट पे ये एरोप्लेन ऊपर की तरफ आसानी से उड़ जाता है. तो उसमें डेटा 100 साल तक का देखा जाता है कि हवा की क्या स्पीड रहती है, किस टाइम पे सबसे ज्यादा होती है, और डायरेक्शन उसका क्या होता है, ये सब चीजें. सो इसी तरह से आप पास्ट एक्सपीरियंसेस पे डिसाइड कर सकते हैं. और जो विजडम यूज करते हैं लोग, देख लिया अभी रात को कैसा था और कल कैसा था, आज कैसा रहेगा. सो दिस इज द डायनेमिक्स. The truth value changes from one time to another time, from one person to another person. And in other examples, the truth value of a proposition may change from a place to another place. Also, the truth value depends with respect to the observer, कि हमने किससे मशवरा लिया, कौन हमको मशवरा दे रहा है. और इसीलिए कहा जाता है कि when you seek any opinion, you should always consult a wise person and you should have full confidence on him. वरना वो मशवरा हो सकता है कि वो अपने हिसाब से बेस्ट दे, but because he is not so wise, it may be destructive for your purpose. चलिए. So this representation is closer to the human mind reasoning. So the characteristic, it characterizes and catches the imprecision of knowledge or linguistic inexactitude received by various observers. ये एप्लीकेशन है जो क्लाउड का, इसमें भी क्लाउड इज ए न्यूट्रोसोफिक सेट बिकॉज इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू डिस्टिंग्विश one cloud from another cloud and give a boundary to it. इसीलिए क्लाउड का डिस्क्रिप्शन रफ सेट थ्योरी में बहुत अच्छा किया गया है. इसको आप लोग देख लीजिएगा अपने इत्मीनान के लिए, so that you may read and have a better understanding of the thing which is here. So here we would like to say that the neutrosophic logic is, in fact, it represents a very generic logic, which in turn becomes Boolean logic अगर total value 1 हो जाए और indeterminacy 0 हो जाए. So the truth value and the false value are 0 and 1. So if I is equal to 0 and there is no superset of T and F, it becomes the Boolean logic. It becomes a multiple valued logic if all the three values of truth, indeterminacy, and falsehood are between 0 and 1. It becomes a fuzzy logic if indeterminacy is equal to 0 and the truth and false value is between 0 and 1, and the sum of the two, truth value and F value, is equal to 1, is a fuzzy logic, because the falsity is the complement of truth value and truth value is the complement of falsity, like probability. In intuitionistic fuzzy set theory, it becomes intuitionistic when the T plus I plus F is equal to 1 exactly, where the indeterminacy can be in between 0 and 1. तो यहाँ indeterminacy को भी लिया गया है, लेकिन तीनों को जोड़ने पे 1 होना चाहिए. जिन्होंने पार्टी ए को वोट दिया, जिन्होंने पार्टी बी को वोट दिया, और जो लोग वोट नहीं दिए, तीनों को मिलाकर के टोटल पॉपुलेशन हो जाना चाहिए. So this becomes intuitionistic fuzzy. So we can say that neutrosophic logic is far better representation of the real world due to the reasons that it becomes the fuzzy logic, though it ensures a multiple belongingness of a particular element to multiple classes with varied degree, but capturing of neutralities due to indeterminacy is missing. Further, the data representation using fuzzy logic is limited by the fact that membership and non-membership value of an element to a particular class should sum up to 1. तो ये हमने यहाँ पर तीनों को बता दिया कि the generalized this neutrosophic logic becomes any one of these four given the conditions of I and T and F. So we can say that neutrosophic logic is a superset of fuzzy logic, whatever we have studied. So people have been working on these recently, and Florentine in USA, he is very fond of the Indian students. Uh, he replies very quickly, and I have worked with him very closely. उनके पास ज्यादातर स्टूडेंट्स एशियन हैं, from Bangladesh, from Sri Lanka, from India, from Pakistan. So he entertains very nicely, and he is a man who is now considered as the father of all logics these days. ये एक एग्जाम्पल मैंने दिया है, देने की कोशिश की है कि जैसे एक रोबो है, उस रोबो की ट्रैकिंग होती है, और उसको अगर हम मूव करते हैं, रोबो को कंट्रोल करते हैं, इफ इट इज मूविंग एंड सामने में कोई ऑब्स्टेकल है, कोई दीवार है, तो जाहिर है कि कंट्रोल सिस्टम इसमें लगेगा। तो कई तरह के कंट्रोल लगा सकते हैं। अगर हम इसमें कंट्रोल लगाते हैं बूलियन लॉजिक का और रूल बनाते हैं कि इफ द डिस्टेंस बिटवीन द रोबो एंड द ऑब्स्टेकल इज लेस देन 10 सेंटीमीटर, देन स्टीयर फॉर 10 डिग्री प्लस 10 डिग्री, and if the distance between the robo and obstacle is more than 10 centimeter, then steer for minus 10 degree. And rule तीसरा बनाते हैं कि the distance between the robo and obstacle is 10 centimeter exactly, then go straight forward. तो ये वो रूल है जिसको हम कह सकते हैं कि ये बूलियन लॉजिक का रूल है। हम इस तरह का डिस्टेंस को डिफाइन करते हैं इस तरह से, और डिग्री को हम इस तरह से डिफाइन करते हैं। तो ऐसी सिचुएशन में क्या होगा कि जो रोबो है वो लेफ्ट और राइट ऑसिलेट करता रहेगा, इट विल नॉट बी एबल टू मूव फॉरवर्ड। ओके, कभी लेफ्ट 10 डिग्री लेफ्ट जाएगा पॉजिटिव, कभी 10 डिग्री नेगेटिव। सो बूलियन लॉजिक इज नॉट एट ऑल गुड फॉर एप्लीकेशन इनटू सच सिचुएशन। अब इसी रोबो को हम फजी लॉजिक से कंट्रोल करने की कोशिश करते हैं। तो फजी लॉजिक में जो रूल बनेगा वो कुछ इस तरह का बनेगा कि if the distance between the robo and the obstacle is less than 10 centimeter, then turn to the left. If the distance is more than 10 centimeter, then turn to right. And if the distance between the robo and the obstacle is nearly 10 centimeter, अब यहाँ पर important जो है वो nearly 10 centimeter आ गया। अभी तक जो बुलियन था वहां पर nearly 10 centimeter का कोई concept नहीं था, either less than or either greater than. अब ये nearly is a new concept which can be defined in fuzzy and then keep the direction. आप आगे बढ़ते रहिए। इससे जब हम यूज करते हैं, then how do we define? ये देखिए 10 सेंटीमीटर को less than 10 centimeter can be defined like this. So if exactly it is 10 centimeter, तो हम more than 10 centimeter इस तरह से डिफाइन करेंगे, less than 10 centimeter को इस तरह से, and nearly 10 centimeter can be defined with a triangle. कि 10 centimeter से थोड़ा सा ज्यादा या थोड़ा सा कम we can define with this membership. Similarly, angle को zero angle है तो plus alpha on this side, minus alpha on this side, and nearby angle can be defined with a triangle. तो ये membership descriptions हैं, membership representations हैं for distance as well as for angle. And if the rule is applied, we can, the fuzzy reasoning, with the same rule, we can say that the robo will take an action, and we will take a defuzzification algorithm. And after defuzzification, by applying the center of gravity rule, we will find that the robo will follow a very, extraordinary path that we expect to do. So this is what is fuzzy reasoning. लेकिन अगर हम न्यूट्रोसोफिक रीजनिंग में आए, तो जो यहाँ पर डिस्टेंस की बात की गई थी अबाउट 10 सेंटीमीटर, उसको कैसे रिप्रेजेंट करेंगे? सो द न्यूट्रोसोफिक रीजनिंग सिस्टम would be a special system which would be more generalized and indeterminacy tolerant in its working as compared to fuzzy. So these न्यूट्रोसोफिक reasoning systems would differ substantially according to the nature of the control problems that are supposed to solve. Here we are restricting ourselves to the explanation of न्यूट्रोसोफिक reasoning for the simple toy problem from the field of mobile robo. तो अब इसको मोबाइल रोबो को जब हम देखते हैं और हम इसमें न्यूट्रोसोफिक रूल लगाते हैं, तो अब हमें सिर्फ लेस देन 10 सेंटीमीटर, नियरली 10 सेंटीमीटर, मोर देन 10 सेंटीमीटर, अब इसमें हमको less than 10 centimeter truth value, less than 10 centimeter indeterminacy value, and less than 10 centimeter falsity value. So हर component के 3 values define करने पड़ेंगे, nearly 10 centimeter के भी 3 values और more than 10 centimeter के भी 3 values, because T, I and F. और जब हम इनको फिर एंगल को भी नेगेटिव, जीरो एंड पॉजिटिव की भी 3 वैल्यूज डिफाइन करनी पड़ेंगी. थोड़ा कॉम्प्लिकेटेड हो जाता है, बट it gives results in much better way. So we have seen this algorithm working, and when we applied, we found that naturally अब defuzzification भी 3 तरह का होगा, और उसके बाद we sum the result and find that it has given the best of the result according to Neutrosophic logic. Ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you that there is no toolbox so far available in MATLAB for the Neutrosophic logic. We have the toolbox for fuzzy logic, and therefore it has become very popular. We are approaching the MathWorks for generating a toolbox for a Neutrosophic logic also, but it has very little acceptability. You remember, fuzzy logic took 10 to 15 years to get the acceptability. लुत्फी ज़ादे भी अपना पेपर पब्लिश नहीं कर पा रहे थे, but then in 80s the transaction on fuzzy logic and fuzzy system started, and now it has become so popular. And we hope that even Neutrosophic logic will gain similar kind of popularity, and we will have its viability and popularity as it has happened with the fuzzy logic. Modulation and demodulation techniques, including the center of gravity, has been used in this, and we have found advantage of using Neutrosophic logic over fuzzy logic. ये हमारा एक concluding slide है, इसे हमारे कोई भाई बहन में से पढ़ दें जरा इसे.
Neutrosophic logic includes varied range of logics. So there seems a possibility of potential conversion of logic specific systems to more generalized and indiscriminate logical systems that can exhibit different logical behaviors depending on the nature of the problem being solved, which is possible by integrating Neutrosophic logic in systems, as it can capture indeterminacy. So definitely Neutrosophic logic holds its chance to be experimented and utilized for real world executions and human psychology simulations.
Very good. So, it has the ability to capture the real human brain, and we can do the simulation of the human mind, the psychology of the human mind through these kind of simulations. So it has the potential. Now I will show you 2 slides which was sent to me by Florentine Samarandach, and he said, Professor Ansari, we are trying to hit the target. We are not successful, but we are very close. See this arrow is very close to the target. So the current research focus of the Neutrosophic logic, we have been hitting, and somehow the true shots will come in the center. And the last slide that he sent was this one. ये तो application area है जो हम फजी लॉजिक के बारे में भी बात कर रहे थे, तब भी किया था. वो सारे एरियाज जो फजी से कवर नहीं हो सकते, वो इनटू न्यूट्रोसॉफिक लॉजिक से कवर हो जाएंगे, और वो उनको यहाँ हमने लिस्ट कर दिया है. You don't need to read them, but आप इसको एक बार देख तो लीजिए ही कम से कम. And then I will come to the last slide, which was sent to me by Florentine once again. Okay, so here is the last slide, which is said that we are making noise uh, from here and there. We are trying to make the people understand the utility of the neutrosophic logic, trying to make uses. I guided a research PhD, and we did the PhD on न्यूट्रोसोफिक न्यूरल नेटवर्क. फॉर एग्जांपल फजी न्यूरल नेटवर्क पे बहुत काम हुआ है, लेकिन हमने न्यूट्रोसोफिक न्यूरल नेटवर्क पे काम कराया और वो पीएचडी बहुत अच्छी अवार्ड हुई एंड इट गॉट very nice publications. So slowly we are getting into the popular mode of this logic, and we hope that very soon we will have a transaction on this logic as well. तो समरन दाचे साहब सबसे ऊपर बैठ के आवाज लगा रहे हैं, और आज हम कहीं यहाँ पर होंगे जो आपके सामने आवाज लगाए हैं. The people, if they start working into this new area, and because it doesn't have a toolbox, you will have to do the programming on your own using the MATLAB. So it requires a little extra effort, but yet it is worth doing it. Pro and cons, बहुत benefits हैं, but it requires complex mathematics to understand. Those who are good at it, they are most welcome. But मेहनत के बगैर कुछ भी बहुत अच्छा नहीं होता है. अगर को बहुत अच्छा करना हो तो थोड़ा एफर्ट ज्यादा लगाना ही पड़ता है. The amount of effort that you put, the commensurate amount of results you get. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. This is the reference which I have used for preparing my slides, in which there are papers by Atanasov himself. There are papers by me also, but probably I have not listed here. And then I open the box for questions and answers once again.
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
So thank you, sir, for incredibly enlightening session.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had one query, sir.
Please.
The concept of handling ambiguity, indeterminacy, uncertainty, contradiction, and incomplete information simultaneously is really fascinating. Are there any specific areas of research that you find particularly promising for further advancing practical applicability of neutrosophic logic?
Oh, yes, there are multiple. The areas which cannot be covered by fuzzy logic can be covered here. Fuzzy logic में यही तो है ना, the belongingness and non-belongingness should be equal to 1, the total of that. लेकिन ऐसी सिचुएशन में जहां पर ये 1 ना हो, वहां पर यही लॉजिक यूज करेंगे. तो ये तो आपको लाइफ में इतनी सारी सिचुएशंस मिल जाएंगी एम्बिगुअस कि आपको यूज करना. पैराडॉक्सिस इज वन गुड एग्जांपल ऑफ दैट.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, Meena, बोलिए.
Sir, example of paradox, it could be the use of the technology with respect to our human brain. That means we are too much concentrating on the usability of the technology that we are losing our own brain power.
Oh, yes. No, the point is the machines can never overcome the human brain. But point is that we want to work faster. It's not that we are not trying to use our mind, but human has a limit on its speed of work. And also we are prone to making mistakes. Machines have the ability, if they are trained for one task, they will not make mistake and they will do much faster. That is the advantage. But who are going to make those machines? We only. So
Yes.
we should never be afraid of the superiority of the machines. They cannot be.
Yes,
Because-
machine is operated by the humans. Obviously,
Yes,
human
yes.
are the
People are getting afraid of the artificial intelligence. No, never. Have you used the GPT when it
yes,
produces
chat
the
GPT. It's
Yeah.
giving answer whatever I am writing. It's usually give the answer.
and then it warns. It warns also. What it warning is that the GPT can make mistakes. Whatever result has been produced, you have to check with your own wisdom and try to make it. So
Yes, sir.
they cannot be better than human, but what it is doing faster.
Yes, sir. We should control that speed.
Yes.
Thank
Right.
you, sir.
Welcome, Amina. Where are you from, Amina?
I am from Kolkata and I work in Iowa University, Newton campus in CS
Very.
department.
Thank you very much. Good. Any other question? So may I request the organizers to please intervene? Thank you, Sukanya, for